My name is Serena Holt. I'm 31 years old. On paper, I'm the sort of woman people assume has it all figured out. Founder of a logistics consulting firm. Financially independent, decisive, the kind who looks like she always knows where she's going. But the truth, I didn't always feel that way. I built my business in my 20s on caffeine and desperation, scraping through 80-hour weeks on cheap noodles and recycled hope. I remember those first years so vividly, the secondhand laptop that overheated. If I opened more than 2 tabs, the nights I cried into spreadsheets, wondering if I'd made a colossal mistake. But slowly, painfully, momentum came. One small contract led to another, and eventually the phone stopped being silent. 2 years ago, I landed a breakthrough deal that changed everything. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving, I was living. And in the middle of all that, there was Ryan Vance. He was 28 when we met, charming in that dreamy, distracted way that artists often are. He worked as a receptionist at the time, but his passion, his whole identity, really was fine art. He wanted to be a curator one day, living among canvases and collectors. His problem wasn't ambition, it was access. No connections, no resources, no one to believe in him. And me, I was smitten. After years of tunnel vision work, he felt like sunlight. Ryan was color where my life had been gray. He'd talk about brushstrokes and forgotten painters with such fire in his eyes that I found myself believing in his dream as if it were mine. So I made him an offer. Quit the job you hate, I told him. Take the internships even if they don't pay. Study, network, build the future you keep talking about. I'll cover the rest. It wasn't pity. It was partnership. Or at least that's what I thought. For 3 years, I funded Ryan's life. His chic downtown apartment, $500 a month, signed under my name. His glossy Audi A5 lease $800 a month, co-signed by me. I covered groceries, art supplies, clothes. I gave him 2 credit cards attached to my accounts, and I never once checked the statements. My work demanded enough micromanagement. With Ryan, I wanted to trust. I wanted to believe love was something simple, give and be given to. 3 years. That's how long I built a foundation for him to stand on. So when our anniversary came around a Tuesday night, I planned something special. Ryan had been eyeing a restaurant for months, the kind where you have to book weeks in advance. I made reservations. I bought him a gift too, a simple but beautiful sapphire pendant on a thin silver chain. Not flashy, just meaningful. I imagined it resting against his collarbone the way he'd smile and joke that I was spoiling him again. I came home earlier than usual, the box in my bag, my heart light. The apartment was empty. No problem, I thought. He'd be back soon. I set the table, even lit one of those overpriced candles he liked. By 7:15, I was still alone. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ryan. 7 words that hollowed me out in an instant. I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you. No explanation, no apology, just that. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. It felt like a punch to the chest, sharp, suffocating. I wanted to type a dozen questions. Why, who? What did I do wrong? But then clarity slid in, cold and sharp, like glass. Nothing more to do with you. He'd drawn the line himself. He wanted it clean final. And if he wanted final, I would give him final. I typed 3 words in return, as you wish. Then, with hands steadier than I expected, I set the phone down. The sapphire necklace sat in its box on the counter, its beauty mocking me in the candlelight. I blew out the flame, the apartment filling with darkness. I wasn't his patron anymore. I wasn't his safety net. Whatever came next, Ryan Vance had chosen it, and I would make sure he lived with that choice. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the glow from my laptop spilling across the room. My body felt drained, but my mind, sharp, clinical, unrelenting. It was as though the part of me that once built a business from nothing had suddenly taken control, pushing grief into a corner and replacing it with cold precision. Ryan wanted nothing more to do with me. Then he would get exactly that. The first step was simple. I opened my banking portal, scrolling until I reached the accounts linked to him. There they were, 2 credit cards in his name as an authorized user. The balance wasn't small. Designer clothes, wine shipments, museum memberships, even a suspicious charge from a luxury spa I didn't remember him mentioning. My stomach twisted, but my fingers didn't hesitate. Remove user, confirm. Both cards blinked from active to deactivated in seconds. Next, the car, the glossy black Audi A5. His pride, though he never admitted it was really mine. Lease in my name, co-signed under his, a symbol of success he hadn't earned. I logged into the finance portal, my pulse steady. The next payment was due in 6 days. I canceled the auto pay. He could explain that to the dealership. Then the apartment, a chic space full of exposed brick and abstract art prints. He loved telling people it reflected his aesthetic as if he'd chosen it. In reality, the lease sat in my name, every clause binding me, not him. I found the PDF, scanned the break clause. 60 days notice and a 2-month penalty. Expensive, yes, but clean. I drafted the email right then, CCing my personal account for a timestamp. Streaming subscriptions. One by one, I logged in. Netflix, remove profile. Spotify, log him out. Boutique gym membership canceled. The artisanal meal kit he bragged about to friends terminated. Each click felt less like a loss and more like a reclamation. Even the phone plan. He'd been on my family line. I initiated the process to have his number removed. The whole purge took less than an hour. When it was done, I sat back staring at the glow of my laptop. There was no satisfaction, no revenge thrill, just emptiness. A hollow echo where love used to be. On the kitchen counter, the sapphire necklace still lay unopened. I couldn't bring myself to touch it. Instead, I slipped it from its bag, set it on the marble surface, and left it there like a gravestone marker. By midnight, I was gone. I stuffed an overnight bag with the bare minimum laptop, toothbrush, running shoes, and drove across town to my sister Leah's place. She opened the door in sweatpants, bleary-eyed, and when she saw my face, she didn't ask questions, just pulled me into her arms. I stayed silent for the long time. Finally, I whispered, "He left." Just like that. A text. Leah swore softly under her breath, squeezing my shoulder. "Serena, he's been bleeding you dry for years. Maybe this is the universe's way of cutting him out for good." I wanted to believe her, but the silence from Ryan wasn't relief, it was dread. Because I knew him. I knew silence wasn't the end. And I was right. For 5 days I heard nothing. Not a word. I went to work, buried myself in client calls, avoided glancing at the necklace still waiting on the counter of that empty apartment. I told myself it was finished. That my last text, "as you wish," had ended the chapter cleanly. But on Friday at exactly 2:47 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Not from Ryan, from a stranger. Subject urgent regarding Mr. Ryan Vance. It was an email from a partner at a downtown law firm. He was representing Ryan and demanded immediate contact regarding my summary and malicious cessation of established financial support. I stared at the screen, my lips curling into something that wasn't quite a laugh. Not the end after all, just the beginning. The email sat on my screen like a joke, written in legalese. Malicious cessation of support. The words were so absurd I read them twice, then a third time, waiting for them to transform into something that made sense. Ryan had dumped me with 7 words, and now barely a week later, his lawyer was demanding I continue funding his life. I forwarded the email to my sister Leah. She called me immediately. "You've got to be kidding me." She snapped, her voice vibrating with fury. "He ends things by text, and now he wants what alimony without the marriage?" I exhaled, pressing my fingers into my temples. That's exactly what it feels like. There was only one thing to do. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. Mr. Phillip, my father's longtime business attorney. A sharp, no-nonsense man with a calm demeanor that always reminded me of a surgeon preparing for delicate work. When I explained the situation, he didn't interrupt. He just listened, then finally pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose and said in a measured voice, "Well, Ms. Holt, it appears you've encountered a new species of parasite." I laughed, actually laughed for the first time in days. The tension cracked just enough to let relief seep in. We met the next morning in his office. I slid my laptop across the desk, showing him the letter from Ryan's attorney. Mr. Bobby, apparently. Mr. Phillip read it once then, again chuckling under his breath. "Malicious cessation is the legal equivalent of a toddler's tantrum," he said finally. "It sounds menacing, but it has no teeth. You are not married. You share no joint assets. Everything you provided him was voluntary, and he terminated the relationship himself. So there's nothing he can do," I asked, my voice low, cautious. "Nothing that won't backfire." Mr. Phillip typed a crisp reply on his laptop as he spoke. "We'll make it clear, no legal claim, no settlement, and any further communication goes through me." That should put the fear where it belongs on their side. For a moment I felt lighter, protected. Maybe this nightmare would burn itself out. But then Mr. Bobby responded, not with silence, not with retreat, with escalation. A formal letter arrived 2 days later. This time it wasn't just threats, it was a proposal, a so-called confidential transitional support settlement. The language was dripping with condescension. Ryan had suffered significant professional setbacks because of my abrupt withdrawal of support. He was experiencing severe emotional distress. They wanted me to continue paying his rent and car for 6 more months, plus a lump sum of $20,000, all to avoid lengthy and public litigation. I nearly threw the letter across the room. Leah was pacing in my kitchen when I read it aloud to her. Oh my God, Serena, this is extortion. Plain and simple extortion. I wanted to scream to shatter something. Instead, I sat down heavily, whispering, he really believes he can rewrite the story. That he can dump me and then demand I bankroll his happily ever after with her. Her. I hadn't spoken her name yet. The someone else. Sabrina. Ryan hadn't introduced me to her, but social media filled the blanks. Sabrina bold lipstick, glittering selfies, always holding champagne flutes, or posing in luxury condos that weren't hers. A real estate developer, according to her bio, though a little digging, suggested commission-based agent was closer to the truth. Ryan left me for her, and now, hand in hand with his new girlfriend, he was trying to bleed me out one final time. Mr. Phillips' response was firm, bordering on gleeful. Ignore them. Let them spend their money on paper and ink. If they file, we counter. And believe me, their side knows they'll lose. But ignoring Ryan didn't mean he ignored me. That weekend, the text started. First pleading. You can't just leave me with nothing, Serena. Then indignant. The car lease is in your name. You're ruining your own credit too. Are you really that stupid? And finally, venomous Sabrina says, you're playing games you can't win. She's right. I read them all, my hands trembling, but I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded every word to Mr. Phillip, who replied with a dry chuckle in email form. Direct contact after counsel. Thank you, Miss Holt. He's a gift that keeps on giving. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Because men like Ryan, people like Ryan, don't stop when you cut the cord. They cling, they twist, they reinvent themselves as victims. And I could feel it, the next mask he'd put on. It started with a phone call. Saturday morning, just as I was pouring coffee, my cell buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something inside urged me to pick up. Ms. Holt. The voice on the other end was a woman clipped and irritated. This is Judith, property manager for the downtown loft. Ryan Vance is here, with a guest. They're demanding entry. My stomach tightened. Entry for what? They're claiming they need access to retrieve his belongings, Judith replied. But Ryan isn't on the lease. You are, and until this matter is formally resolved, I can't grant him a key. I thought you should know he's causing quite a scene. Through the receiver, I could hear raised voices, Ryan's familiar cadence, and a shrill feminine edge that had to be Sabrina. I closed my eyes, of course. Judith, I said carefully, you're absolutely right not to let him in. Please keep me updated. I'll handle this legally. I hung up my hand trembling as I set the phone down. Not 20 minutes later, the text started. Ryan, you can't just throw me out. My internship portfolio is inside. You know I have a review next week. Ryan again. The Audi dealership just called. The payment was declined. The car is in your name. You're wrecking your own credit. Are you stupid? And then the dagger, Ryan, Sabrina says you're cruel. She says you're abusive. She's showing me what real support looks like, unlike you. I stared at the words, bile rising in my throat. Abusive. The same man who'd lived off my accounts for 3 years was now recasting himself as my victim. I forwarded the messages to Mr. Phillip. His reply was instantaneous, almost gleeful. Thank you for the evidence. Direct contact after counsel. We'll use this. But Ryan wasn't finished. He escalated. That night, my phone buzzed again. This time, not with a message, but with a screenshot. A mutual acquaintance had forwarded me Ryan's private Instagram story. The image stopped me cold. Ryan, teary-eyed, staring at the camera with a caption scrawled across the screen. Finally escaping a financially abusive, controlling relationship. The road ahead is terrifying, but I'm grateful for those who show me real love. Survivor. My breath caught in my chest. The audacity was staggering. He had dumped me. He had demanded more money, and now he was branding me as an abuser. Leah, my sister, was at my side when I saw it. She grabbed the phone, her jaw tightening. He's weaponizing pity. He's trying to spin you into the villain so no one questions his story. I sank into the couch, my chest heavy, and people will believe him. They'll see his tears and her arm around him, and they'll believe. Leah sat beside me, gripping my hand. Truth doesn't need theatrics, Serena. It will show itself. I wanted to believe her, but the memory of Ryan's eyes, wide and pathetic in that selfie, haunted me. I knew his charm. I knew how easily he bent people's sympathy. The following week, the confrontation escalated again, this time in person. The movers I'd hired for Ryan's official retrieval day called me in a panic. Ms. Holt. He and his girlfriend showed up early. Lawyer's not here yet. They're saying we should just let them in. My pulse spiked. Do not let them touch a thing until Mr. Phillip arrives. Too late. By the time Phillip walked into the building, Ryan and Sabrina had already tried to drag out furniture that wasn't theirs. A custom bookshelf. My ergonomic desk. Even the OLED TV I'd purchased myself. The movers, bless them, stood firm. One of them, a tall, broad-shouldered man, blocked their path and said calmly, "Folks, this isn't on the approved list. Put it down or we'll have to call the police." I imagined Ryan's face flushed with fury, Sabrina's nails digging into his arm as she hissed encouragement. They thought intimidation would work. But then Philip arrived calm as a blade. He spread receipts across the counter, every piece of furniture, every item, all in my name. And then he looked Ryan dead in the eye. "Mr. Vance," he said evenly, "since your counsel isn't present, this attempt to remove property is a breach of your agreement. If you persist, I will file a report for attempted grand larceny." Ryan's bravado faltered. Sabrina tugged at his sleeve, muttering something I couldn't hear. Within minutes, they grabbed only his boxes and stormed out, leaving scuff marks on the walls and trash on the floor. Later, when I saw the mess, the landlord's bill for $1,200 in damages landed like another slap. Philip promptly forwarded it to Mr. Bobby, along with the movers' incident report. But here's the thing. That was the moment the tide began to turn. Not because of me, not because of Philip, because Ryan's own lies started to eat him alive. Remember that Instagram story, the one where he branded himself a survivor? Well, the art world is small. A junior curator at the gallery where Ryan interned, Leslie saw it. She knew me. Not deeply, but enough. Enough to know Ryan's sob story didn't add up. And Leslie showed it to her colleagues. The whispers spread. Ryan Vance, funded by a girlfriend, now calling her abusive. Didn't he show up with a new woman days after leaving? The same world he wanted so badly to climb into began closing its doors. The gallery director, notorious for valuing reputation above all else, quietly let him go. Just like that, his mask began to crack. And for the first time since the text, I felt the faintest flicker of relief. Not victory, just the quiet hum of balance being restored. For a few weeks, everything went quiet. Too quiet. Ryan stopped texting. Sabrina stopped taunting me. No new legal letters arrived. For the first time in months, my phone wasn't a source of dread. I told myself it was over. That maybe, just maybe, they'd slithered off into their glittering little world, leaving me behind. But silence has its own weight. It makes you wonder what's building beneath it. Then, one afternoon, my inbox pinged with a message from Leslie, the junior curator from Ryan's gallery. We'd spoken only in passing before polite exchanges at art events, but her email was direct, kind, and heavy with something unspoken. "Hey, Serena, I hope you're doing okay. Things have been messy here since Ryan left. Thought you might want to see this." Attached was a link. It led to Facebook, a long raw post from Ryan's father. My chest tightened as I read because this wasn't the gloating of a parent defending their son. It was heartbreak. He didn't name me, but the picture was unmistakable. He wrote about how Ryan had walked away from a good, stable partner who had supported him, believed in him, and given him every opportunity to chase his dream. And he wrote about Sabrina, the developer whose entire life it turned out was built on quicksand. Russell knows Sabrina wasn't wealthy, not even close. Commission-based, drowning in debt. The luxury, the champagne, the high-rise selfies, they were all smoke and mirrors. And when Ryan leapt from my stability into her chaos, the floor gave way. According to his father, Ryan's new life unraveled fast. The internship gone after whispers of unprofessional conduct. His reputation torched by his own slander. Sabrina's income unpredictable, her lifestyle unsustainable. The financial strain cracked them open like glass under pressure. Their fights were public, messy, humiliating. The breakup was spectacular and final. Ryan, once surrounded by people who called him brilliant, charming, talented, now had no one, no internship, no car, the Audi repossessed after the missed payments, no apartment, and perhaps worst of all, no friends. Even the ones who'd believed his survivor story began to distance themselves. His father's words cut deepest. She gave him a ladder to his dreams, and he chose to jump off it for a snake. I read it 3 times, tears stinging my eyes. Not from pity, not from triumph, but from the strange, bittersweet ache of seeing the truth finally spoken aloud. Leah came over that night, sitting cross-legged on my couch as I showed her the post. She read it in silence, then whispered, "It's over. Serena, it's finally over." I wanted to believe her. I thought back to everything I'd endured. The text message that shattered me, the legal threats, the apartment scene, the lies he spun online. I remembered the necklace I'd left on the counter that night, its sapphire catching the light like a cruel joke. And then I thought about gravity. How you don't have to push people like Ryan. You just have to step back and let gravity take its course. The consequences were complete. His career gone. His reputation ruined. His new love collapsed under the weight of reality. Every scheme he tried to twist against me circled back and devoured him instead. I hadn't needed revenge. The world had handled that for me. But still, the scar remained. That weekend, I called a moving company not for Ryan, but for myself. I donated the furniture he'd once lounged on the TV. He'd insisted we needed the bed where I'd spent too many sleepless nights wondering why love wasn't enough. Piece by piece, it all disappeared into a truck bound for a local charity. Families in need would sit on that couch, eat at that table, watch shows on that television. Cleansing. That's what it felt like. Not rage, not justice, just release. As the last item was hauled out, I stood in the empty apartment, the walls echoing with absence. For the first time, I didn't picture Ryan filling the space. I pictured myself. Alone, yes, but whole. I locked the door, dropped the keys with the landlord, and walked away without looking back. The chapter was over. Or at least almost over. For a while, life was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty, but clean. I went back to the rhythms I'd abandoned, early runs at the riverfront, long strategy calls with clients, dinners with Leah where we laughed about nothing at all. The chaos Ryan had dragged into my orbit began to dissolve like smoke cleared from a room. But scars don't vanish overnight. Some mornings I'd catch myself scrolling through old photos, Ryan's smile lit by some gallery's halogen lamps, his arm slung over my shoulder. I'd remember the nights I stayed up late editing his internship applications, or the times he'd kiss my forehead and whisper that I was his forever. And then I'd remember the text, 7 words that had reduced me from forever to disposable. One evening, as I wrapped up emails, a new message appeared in my inbox. From Leslie. "Hey, Serena, just wanted to check in. Things have been calmer since Ryan left the gallery scene. Thought you might appreciate this." Attached was a screenshot, another Facebook post, this time from Ryan's father again. It was shorter, but heavier somehow. He wrote about his son's choices, the destruction they had left behind, and the harsh reality Ryan was now facing, moving back into his childhood bedroom. No car, no career, a mountain of debt. He didn't sound angry, just devastated. Reading it, my heart twisted not with pity for Ryan, but for his father. For a parent forced to watch a child unravel, powerless to stop it. I closed the email and sat for a long time staring at nothing. Then I typed a reply. "Thank you for sharing this, Leslie, and thank you for reaching out before. You didn't have to. It meant more than you know." Her response came quickly. "You deserve better than what he did. Don't let him make you doubt that." I smiled, small but genuine. Not because her words erased the scar, but because they reminded me not everyone in this world is a predator. The last step came weeks later. I returned to the apartment one final time after the last bill had been settled, after the landlord confirmed the lease break was processed. The place was hollow now, stripped bare. No art prints, no sleek furniture, no trace of Ryan's curated aesthetic. Just white walls and faint scuff marks like ghosts of what had been. I walked through slowly, touching the cool window panes, the door frames, the space where the necklace had sat untouched on the counter. For a fleeting moment, sorrow brushed against me, 3 years of love and trust reduced to this emptiness. But then another feeling rose stronger. Relief. Because what he left behind wasn't a void. It was space. Space I could fill with whatever I chose. I locked the door for the last time and dropped the keys into the manager's hand. As I walked away, sunlight spilled across the street, catching the glass towers in a blaze of gold. That was the moment I realized justice isn't always a lightning strike. Sometimes it's just gravity. You don't have to pull anyone down. You only have to step aside and let them fall. And me, I was no longer falling. I was free.